What's up, Raider Nation? Welcome to True Raider Podcast. I'm your host, True Raider. Now, I just wanted to touch on this subject about Jakorian Bennett being traded for Thomas Booker from the Eagles. If you do not know, our cornerback Jakorian Bennett was traded straight across for defensive tackle Thomas Booker from the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, it was really kind of weird when this news broke last night because it was really unclear on like why would we do this move, and there's a lot of speculation around it. But what we're looking at now is that the Raiders did hire the former director of scouting from the Eagles, Brandon Hunt, as our VP of player personnel, and he does have connections with what was going on with Thomas Booker over there in Philadelphia, and kind of having a better understanding of who this guy is as a player. And last night I did a live, and we kind of went a lot of back and forth about this because Jakorian Bennett was looking like he was going to be our number one corner last year. I mean, he rated so high in like passing yards allowed and no touchdowns allowed, and just there was just a whole lot of things that looked really, really good. And then there was, a whole lot of speculation when Pete Carroll came in is, does Jakorian Bennett fit the build? Because he's 5'10". He just isn't really a Pete Carroll type of corner. So I don't think it's just all wrapped around that. It looked like, he was taking reps with the third team. And so he's really just not looking like he was going to be a starter or even really a second stringer for us. And if that's the case, to be able to move on from him for a guy that, he was not a first string defensive tackle there in Philadelphia, but Thomas Booker, he definitely, his scouting report says that he was really good when it comes to versatility, when it comes to the run stopping. And they said that, some of the things he could work on is being quicker off the line and things like that. But I watched a little bit of tape on him. I do like what I'm seeing. I don't think that he's really a Christian Wilkins replacement, but because of the release of Christian Wilkins, we were really put in a position where it's pretty important for us to beef up our defensive tackle room. Even though our cornerback room is kind of thin, I think that they already had their top guys, and it looked like Jakorian Bennett had really fallen down the depth chart. And so a couple of Eagles fans actually jumped in the live last night, and they were saying you guys got a good one with Booker because he was really like what they viewed as the next man up, right? He was the next up and coming player on that defensive line, and that defensive line in Philadelphia was stacked, and he played in all 17 games. So for him to even play in all 17 games with a stacked defensive line like the Eagles have, I really think that we are in a position where we picked up a good one. I don't really know that he's going to be the day one starter, but I do think that he's going to play a pretty integral role for the depth on our line. And I think that he is a player that could develop. He's only 25 years old, so he really could develop to be that starting defensive tackle next to Adam Butler. I'm really hoping that that's what he develops into. But, time's going to be what tells on this one. But the fact that our VP of player personnel came over from the Eagles, and it's looking like he had a role to play in this trade. And if that's the case, man, I'm really thinking that, he knows who this guy is and what we have. And I think that this is going to end up being a good move for us. I gotta say, it was really hard for me at first, just the idea of losing Jakorian Bennett, because I like Jakorian Bennett. I think he played well for us. He passed the eye test. He didn't have big flashy stats, but when it came to coverage grades and stuff, he did really well. He had like 8 pass breakups last year in 10 games. He went out with a shoulder injury. He didn't ever have any interceptions for us. And another thing is that, like, there was a lot of question about his ability to tackle and just not being a great tackler. And we really have a different kind of defensive back room of guys that are hard hitters, guys that are tall, they're fast, and Jakorian Bennett just kind of didn't he just didn't fit the build of Pete Carroll. So this was a guy that people have speculated was maybe on the roster bubble and might not even make this roster. And if he's going to be a third stringer or not even make the roster, I think it's a good trade to go ahead and go out, get a defensive tackle that these guys believe can actually be somebody to make a difference for us on that defensive line. I would like to see us make a bigger move when it comes to our defensive line because we're kind of lacking with the loss of Christian Wilkins. But I'm really hoping that the versatility that this guy offers, the run stopping that this guy offers, really puts us in a good position to be able to actually fill that gap of Christian Wilkins. And I know that he's not going to match up, but sometimes that's just kind of where the cards fall, right? You have players that leave a roster, and to fill that hole is not so easy sometimes. There's not just always some big name free agent that's out there or somebody that's on a trading block that you're able to pick up on. And I think that we're doing the best that we can with what we have. But I don't know, man. I've seen a couple of things that are talking really highly of Booker, and I hope that he comes to Vegas and shows out, because really, if you look at Jakorian Bennett going over to that stacked defensive back room in Philadelphia, I don't think that they're going to get nearly as much out of him as we're going to get out of Booker because our defensive tackle room is not stacked. We have some decent guys in there that are like, oh, well, maybe this guy can fill in for Christian Wilkins and maybe that'll do well. And we're just adding more competition to this defensive line. I'm here for it. I think that this is going to turn out to be a pretty good move, and I hope that we are right with this move. I'm trusting the process because Pete Carroll and John Spytek, we actually have adults in the front office now, and I really like all the moves that they've been doing, so I'm not going to get all hyped up because, I think this is different, because they're the ones that are really seeing, Darian Porter and Eric Stokes and these other guys. They're getting to see what's going on in training camp firsthand. They're getting to see where Jakorian Bennett is and how he fits the scheme or doesn't fit the scheme. And so I don't think that we as fans are in a position to really think that we know better than Pete Carroll. That's just how I feel about it, man. You guys, let me know your thoughts in the comments, man. Do you think that this was a good move? Who do you think won the trade? Did the Eagles win the trade? Did the Raiders win the trade? If you have any insight about Booker, let me know. Send it over to me or put it in the comments because I definitely want to learn more. In the meantime, I'm going to be watching some tape. Like always, I love you, nation. I'll catch you on the next one.